The trajectory of superhero movies, and specifically Marvel movies, would forever be changed with the success of films like Blade, Spider-Man, X-Men 2000, and X2 X-Men United. For most of these franchises, the first two films in the series are held in a high regard, while the third film is always in a bit of a flux. And, for the sake of today's video, a film that garnered quite a reputation was the third film in the original X-Men trilogy, X-Men 3: The Last Stand. Everyone's movie taste can be different, and some may enjoy X-Men 3. If you do, that's great. Me, however, I don't like this one. The film's development went through some turbulence as the original director and writers exited the project to go work on Superman Returns, and as the X-Men movie teams were going through some hardships, things at Toy Biz weren't necessarily going too well either. Unfortunately, due to numerous factors like low sales and the merger into Marvel Toys, Toy Biz would not produce action figures for X-Men 3: The Last Stand and any other Marvel properties, as the license was then sold to Hasbro. With how much they improved from movie to movie, I'd imagine that the third film's figures definitely would have been something great, but alas, it wasn't meant to be. We now move into a new era of Marvel movie merchandise, with Hasbro creating the new lines of action figures. So, with the new film on the horizon, Hasbro took on the task of creating figures based on X-Men 3: The Last Stand. During the transition, Hasbro acquired molds from Toy Biz's Marvel Legends line, so it's presumed that the X-Men 3 figures were original Toy Biz molds that Hasbro used or tweaked before sending them into production. Information is scarce, but I've seen enough people say this, so I figured I might as well say it as well, and also I don't want to get jumped for at least not mentioning it. Released throughout 2006-2007 were 5 movie figures. Unlike Toy Biz, who made movie-based waves, Hasbro released 1 to 2 movie figures in a normal Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure wave. I'm not going to go over every wave, but I'll list the main Build-A-Figure wave names. So to start off, released in the Annihilus wave was X-Men 3 Beast. In the Blob wave was Jean Grey and Juggernaut. There were actually 2 different Jean Grey figures, one being a normal-looking one and a corrupted Dark Phoenix version. And finally, in the Queen Brood wave was an X3 Colossus. Hasbro only released 5 figures, but to their credit, they did almost all new characters to the line, and then with a newer version of Jean Grey in her X-Men 3 outfit. The Jean Greys and Juggernaut would only be released in the Build-A-Figure waves, but Beast and Colossus were reissued again under a new title. Following the release and reception of X-Men 3: The Last Stand, the studios decided to go backwards and create a Wolverine origin movie. I bring this up because for Hasbro's Wolverine Origins line, they made an assortment of figures. One of their offerings was a set of 2-packs. These were branded as the X-Men Trilogy Collection, which included Cyclops and Colossus, and Wolverine and Beast. These 2-packs included Beast and Colossus, like the X-Men 3 line, alongside Hasbro-made Cyclops and Wolverine figures. Since they are branded under the original trilogy, I just wanted to mention them here. I don't have the original X3 Colossus release, and instead have the 2-pack version, alongside some of the actual X-Men 3 figures. Hell, I'll even throw Cyclops in here for fun. With all the introductions out of the way, let's take one final look at the original X-Men Trilogy series with X-Men 3: The Last Stand, and review Hasbro's follow-up to the Toy Biz action figure line. We're starting off the review with Mr. McCoy himself, and one of my favorite X-Men members, Beast. This figure captures his look from the end of the movie, with long black pants and an X-branded jacket, from the final battle at Alcatraz Island. With how Beast was fighting and flying around during that fight, this figure would need some good articulation to help represent that. Starting at the legs, he's got standard movements, with ball-jointed legs, double-jointed knees, rotating feet, and a foot hinge. Moving up, you get a waist swivel and a pretty short ab crunch that only moves forward a little bit. The arms have standard movements like double-jointed elbows, hand hinges, and a ball joint shoulder. However, his jacket is made of a thick plastic material, so you can't really move his shoulder upwards all that much. Lastly, we have the face, which honestly I don't think looks that bad. There's definitely a likeness to Kelsey Grammer Beast there, but I just don't know why they made his head so small. With Hank being a big blue furry beast, that is represented here with the fur detailing on the sculpt, which I think looks nice. Overall, Hank here is okay. I wish he had more articulation considering the type of poses and actions he does, but if you want him just working behind a desk or something, then he can do that just fine. So I guess like a kind of like a middle thumbs up would be my rating. Moving on, we have Jean Grey. Considering the movie is all about her, it's great to see a new Jean Grey figure, as the last movie one was back in 2000 for the first film. But is this an upgrade? Well, let's break it down. Starting with design, the figure depicts the new red outfit she wears in the film. However, the figure makes the overall red color much more brighter than it should be, but it has all the details from the costume, which is nice. Let's go over articulation. But before that, I need to talk about this skirt piece. It's made of a hard plastic material, so it blocks a lot of leg movement. There are cuts in it, but they really don't help out all that much. However, there are ball joint legs, a thigh cut, double jointed knees, and an ankle joint. Moving up to the torso, you get a classic waist swivel with limited upper diaphragm cut movement. It rotates around just a bit and can't really move forward all that much. Then we have the arms, which operate on a rotating shoulder hinge, single jointed elbows, and a hand hinge. Her hands are both different, one being sort of a relaxed hand and the second being like a power wielding hand, or just a peace sign hand, whatever you make of it. Last but not least is the head. As for articulation, it moves on a hinge and can move forward a bit, but that's just about it. The hairpiece prevents any movement whatsoever. As for likeness, I don't know. Maybe if you squint hard enough you can see something, but I mean movie Jean Greys haven't had the best track record in action figure form. Hasbro did not cook with this one. Articulation is pretty limited, and I think for an important character, particularly in this film, more effort was needed. The Jean Grey from the first film didn't get the best release, and neither is this one, unfortunately. Maybe one day we'll get a definitive version of movie Jean Grey. Who knows? Hopefully. But yeah, this one's not that great. Next up is Colossus, sporting the blue X-Men uniform similar to his appearance from X-Men 3, though the blue isn't as prominent. But I think it looks better like this, so I don't mind. Moving on to articulation, he follows a pretty basic layout. Starting at the legs, we have foot hinges, double jointed knees, thigh cut, and a ball joint upper leg system. For the torso, there's a waist swivel with a very short ab crunch forward. As for the arms, they both have double jointed elbows with ball joint shoulders and two different hands. A fist and an open palm hand with movable fingers. It's kind of random to have two different hands for this. I think them both being fist or them both being open palm hands just would have been better. Then finally we have the head that moves around on a neck hinge. As for likeness, I think it has a fair resemblance, so good job. Overall, this Colossus figure is pretty simple, just a super tall chrome dude. I wish the steel parts of his body were more shiny, but I think Hasbro's cheap plastic at the time probably wouldn't allow for such a thing. But you can still see some details on his skin and even some elements on the suit itself, which look nice. For the longest time, this was the only movie Colossus figure, but thankfully we have a new movie Colossus figure, albeit from the Deadpool movies. But hey, it's the superior version anyway. I think it's great that they decided to make him. More new characters is better. He had his moments in the previous film, so plastic representation of this version is appreciated. While Hasbro's movie line brought in new characters, it would have been great to get more. Specifically a character like Kitty Pryde, who has a bigger presence in the film and would have helped sort of finish off the X-Men B-team set from the other movies. But for what we got, I think he's one of the better figures of the wave.
I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
Okay, no need to be rude about it. But here is the Juggernaut figure from the line, obviously representing his appearance from the film. He looks fairly accurate, though I think his chest piece strap should be much more darker brown to be more accurate. Let's go over articulation. Legs start with ball joint rotations, thigh cuts, double jointed knees, and a foot hinge. The torso section has a waist swivel and a pretty good ab crunch. The arms operate on ball joint shoulders, bicep swivel, single jointed elbows, and hand hinges. His hands are pre-designed in two gestures, one open palm and a fist hand. The head operates on a very limited hinge system and has a very sad Juggernaut likeness. Why is he so sad looking? Juggernaut is known for having his helmet on, but this offering gives you the option to remove it, so that's neat. With the helmet off, there's actually shading on the back of his head, which is really nice. The helmet itself actually has detail and damage on it, which I think is also a cool attention to detail. I honestly really like this Juggernaut figure, and I think he's one of the standouts in this line. It's not perfect, but I mean, he does everything you'd want him to do. I think something missing from the movie toy lines was more villains, so thankfully we got another one with this release. And jumping ahead 17 years, Juggernaut returns in Deadpool Wolverine, paving the way for a new spot in the collection, so that's always fun. But for what it is, this Juggernaut figure has the same faults as some of the other figures in this line, but I think provides a fair enough representation of his appearance from X-Men 3: The Last Stand. To end off this interesting endeavor, here is Hasbro's Cyclops from the X-Men Trilogy Collection, or Trilogy X-Men Collection if you want to be accurate. While Cyclops was in X-Men 3, he wasn't suited up, and as the sticker suggests, this is more so his look from the first two films. Also, I don't want to talk about Cyclops in X-Men 3. Rest in peace. Obviously, we had Toy Biz Cyclops figures, but this is Hasbro's first attempt, so let's see what they cooked up. Starting with the legs, there's a ball joint upper leg system, thigh cut, double jointed knees, boot swivel, and a foot hinge. Moving up, there's a waist swivel and a pretty good ab crunch. For the arms, there's butterfly movement with shoulder joints, bicep swivel, forearm swivel, and hand hinges. Both his arms are in like a claw type gesture. Then for the head, it's just on a neck hinge. As for the likeness, I mean, they got the hair and goggles right, so that's cool, I guess. But because this figure was made with cheaper plastic, it just looks so shiny. This release was clearly a quick repaint of some male body mold, but I mean, it does offer quite a lot of articulation. I think the coolest thing about this figure is that you could pop the head off and make a movie Cyclops in any outfit, allowing for some really cool kit bashing. But for this 2-pack release, it's a pretty basic figure, with an updated articulation range from the older Cyclops figures, but on a cheaper plastic body with painted on suit details. So it's kind of like a win-lose scenario with this thing. Overall, these figures are fine. It's nothing insane, but not necessarily terrible. I hype up the X2 line, which did have problems, but I feel like it had more quality and effort put into each figure that this Hasbro line just doesn't seem to have. I really think it's the plastic quality, these things just feel cheaper. Whether or not these were original Toy Biz molds, there are still flaws, like some of the articulation, and then the Hasbro plastic just makes it worse. It's just a bittersweet conclusion to the trilogy. It's kind of funny how that works both ways. There are some standouts, but these all ultimately fall flat on quality and have wonky articulation schemes. The original X-Men trilogy's assortment of action figures went through quite an evolution. X-Men 2000 had so many figures, but it was during a time when toy gimmicks and catering to a much younger audience was the prime goal of making action figures. Then for X2, X-Men United, we got honestly some great figures that, while still a bit limited in articulation, I think still offer a great representation of these characters from the early films. With Toy Biz out of commission, Hasbro's follow-up with the X-Men 3 figures didn't necessarily follow suit on the ever-improving line, but at least fills some necessary gaps in the series. It's a shame we didn't get more newcomers like Kitty Pryde and Angel, or even characters from the previous films under the Trilogy Collection line. But the decrease in plastic quality and these really annoying ball joint legs just make these Hasbro ones not as good as the Toy Biz figures. Hasbro's first attempt for X-Men 3 The Last Stand didn't show much promise, but I think they proved themselves years later with their X-Men Legacy collection of figures. But for now, we conclude this look back at the original X-Men trilogy and the many action figure releases by both Toy Biz and Hasbro. It's been a lot of fun looking at these figures from a different era, and I hope you had fun as well. I don't know how to end this video, so I'll just say thank you for watching. Bye. How come I wasn't invited? Ugh.